All right, so I'm going to try to explain this idea that I have for our process at work. And I'm recording this as a video because we don't always have time to sit down and talk about this, and that way, somebody else could watch this later if they need to try to understand what I'm talking about. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. So our current process at work, when packages come into the building, is kind of like this. So basically, a truck comes and drops packages off, and that could happen at any time of the day, and we never know how many packages are going to be on it. So a whole bunch of people run over there and start unloading the truck, and we're helping the driver pull the packages off. And a lot of the reason we're doing that is kind of two things. On one hand, we're doing it because I think because we feel like it's wrong to just tell the driver to stack them himself. But on the other hand, what we're also doing is we're looking at each package to see, okay, what customer sent this, or what project does this package go to, and we're sorting it into a bunch of different pallets or rolling racks or something. Um, so that's what's going on here. So then we're kind of sorting it. So we've got 3 days, we've got forwarding, and then everything else just kind of collects into it's this box where this stuff doesn't really move forward unless somebody comes over and says, hey, do this, or something like that, or it can't move forward for some reason because maybe there's instructions. Like Bryce needs to come explain to people what to do or show them how to do it, or something along those lines. And then part of that too is that I'm going to just colorize something here real quick. These projects that I'm going to mark as red are very time sensitive. So that's also the situation, is that these time sensitive projects tend to take priority over everything else. So sometimes there isn't really time to do this other stuff. All right, so from here, this kind of goes two different ways. These projects constantly move forward. And what I mean by that is that anybody can walk over and do them at any time of the day, and they tend to take long periods of the day. Sometimes there's people doing 3 days all day long. Um, and forwarding is like that too because that's like Montero or something. Once it's in, it's it just goes. There's not really a stopping point usually. This stuff isn't really like that. But anyway, and at some point, these any situation, we can find out something's an auto request, which that means it's a package that we don't actually know what the customer wants us to do with it, and somebody has to figure it out. We don't know what order it is, something like that. So I think there are some things about this process that are kind of left to be desired, and that's kind of what I've done here with these little yellow post-it notes. So this whole area here has some problems. Um, Now it's better than not sorting packages at all. There's no argument about that. But I think this contributes to some issues. The first one is that because of how we do this, we can end up with packages in totally random parts of the warehouse, and people forget we have them. I think that's really what's going on a lot of the times when we find just boxes stacked by the dock door, and nobody remembers they're there, and somebody looks at the end of the day and says, "Hey, why have these been here for 3 or 4 days?" I don't think that's intentional. I honestly believe that's just people forgetting because, there's no real spot for them to be at. And that happens with some of these mystery projects too. We start collecting a pallet of, I don't know, rain boots or something, and nobody knows why. So it just sits there. Now, this is the other thing, is that this maximizes the disruptiveness of deliveries. Because it's such an unforeseeable thing and we don't know when it's going to happen or how many packages it is, this makes deliveries super disruptive. If a truck pulls up, that can very easily pull two, three, sometimes four people. And most of the reason there need to be that many people there is because of this sorting. If we weren't doing this sorting, those people wouldn't need to be there. The other problem is that whoever is involved in this sorting process has to know quite a bit about what packages to expect and about new customers and stuff like that. Otherwise, they can't really do this job correctly. So, we can't. It sounds stupid, but unloading a UPS truck should be an entry level job. But because of what we're doing here, it can't be. This has to be done by an experienced manager. Like, this has got to be like Bryce in most cases has to be involved here, or the result will not be what we want. So moving further down, this is not, I don't see any particular problem with this. This pretty much works. It does mean sometimes there's delays though. And that's kind of what I'm saying here is that sometimes this gap where these things can't constantly move forward causes delays for other areas. Prep gets behind schedule, or Dinesh is upset, or something like that. Refurb runs out of stuff to do. That happens, and this gap is pretty much what causes it. Is that these things can't move continuously forward. I'm not saying it's the only cause. There's probably other things to contribute, but this doesn't help. Now, this also makes a lot of management overhead, because a lot of times these projects cannot move forward until a manager says, hey, do this, or like provide some missing instructions, or something like that. And sometimes that creates an animosity where the manager doesn't realize that, so they're like, why isn't this moving forward? And they're upset with people. And then on the flip side, it can cause people to be upset. Why are these packages collecting and just sitting here? I would like to get these out of the warehouse, but I don't know if I can or what I'm supposed to do with them until I can get a hold of the manager. And the manager, might not be there. He might be on the phone. He might be involved with something else. Who knows? But like, it's that conflict from both sides make it so it can't move forward. And then having auto requests here like means that for any of these projects, there pretty much has to be an expert that is like really good at identifying packages. They have to be able to figure out, okay, what's the order ID, or what does this customer do, or which barcode's the tracking number, all this kind of stuff. And that's also doesn't help us very much, because that means that whoever's doing check-in has to be like highly skilled and know like a lot about the business and what the customers are doing. So I've come up with a different approach to this, and don't be scared. I know this looks big, but it's actually, I think, quite a bit simpler. It's just basically taking a complex problem and breaking it down into smaller steps. Now, when you draw something like that out, it looks more complicated, but it's really not. And it's the same way, we do math problems. When you do, long division, when you're done, the work you've written looks more complicated, but it actually is simpler than trying to do it in your head. So let's just bear with me here. I think what we do is when the truck delivers packages, we don't sort them or do anything with them. We just have the driver stack them all in one spot. And it's not because we're not going to sort them. It's because what this does is it means that instead of having to like drop what we're doing when the guy shows up, all we have to do is open the door and be like, hey dude, stack that stuff over there. Then later when we come to a natural break in our work, then we go sort them. And it's not double touching, because at this point we haven't touched them. All we did was open the door. We might have put a pallet down and said, hey, stack this here, or hey, put these on this rack. So then what we do is we get the conveyor belt out, and we start sorting the packages. And we do it a little bit differently than the way we have been. This would be the type of thing I think could be challenging to get started, but will become smoother over time. So basically, we break the check-in process down into steps that are done maybe even by different people. So the first thing that happens is one guy starts putting packages on the conveyor and sliding them down to somebody who has a handheld or something like that, right? And that guy scans the barcode. This guy knows how to identify packages. He knows what the order ID looks like, all that kind of good stuff. Sorry, he doesn't. I need to put like a little dude there or something. There we go. We've got a little dude here. Okay, so this dude is going to scan the tracking number or whatever label's on the box, and if it doesn't pop up in the system, it's going to come over here and be sidelined. I'm going to come back to that for a second. But if he scans the tracking number and our system's like, yep, we know what order that is, okay, what he's going to do is he's going to sort it at that point by the general type of project that it is. He's still not going to sort it by what customer, because he doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't need to know how to do that. So all this guy is doing is scanning barcodes. He doesn't really need to read the shipping label or anything like that. He might take a picture of the box. So this is basically where we are notifying the customer, hey, we got your package. So this would be like they go to the check-in step up until where it asks them what's in the box, and then they don't do anything past that. Okay, they might put a label on the box, like those ones I was generating last week where it's got like a big letter on it, and then maybe like the order ID printed really large or something like that, so that it's obvious which packages go together and which service we need to do to them. Okay, so we probably break this out. We have, at this point, we're going to have packages for inspection, refurb, prep, forwarding, replenishing customers' inventory, and probably our own supplies. And these just get basically handled in batches. And anything about like sorting by customer is only done at this step if the people doing the job think that it's reasonable to do that. Because for some jobs it doesn't matter. That way, because the sort is more about what work we have to do and not who we're doing it for. I think that that's what this changes. So back to this right here is that if the barcode does not match anything we're expecting, there's probably a guy here who would basically do what our current check-in staff would do, where he's going to really like look and see, okay, is there an order ID on this, or like what's going on, right? And he's going to associate the tracking number with the correct order and then just put it back on the conveyor for this guy. So that means that this guy does need to have some like specialized training. This guy does not. And then most of the work he's going to be able to get through pretty quickly, especially as we push customers to tell us a tracking number ahead of time. Like what Pavel does and what we're starting to be able to do with some people like Montero and stuff like that. I don't know how good of a job I'm doing explaining this. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but and then from here, I think what's going on is we have a production line, maybe a second conveyor, maybe we reuse this conveyor, I'm not really sure. And this is kind of what we came up with for the inspection service, but I think this works just as well for anything. Shouldn't be here, different project, right? So basically, what we're doing is from like say here, right? That's where we're coming here. So the line doing inspection is going to get all the inspection packages that came out of this process. They're going to scan it, and it's going to tell them what's supposed to be inside the package, who sent it, and what notes need to be done. They give it an item number, and it goes down the line. Like we kind of talked about this, where this guy is just basically confirming, yep, we're really supposed to have this package, and we're set up to do it. So here would be an example of what's going on. Let's say we push over a rack of inspection items, and it's a mix of clothing and jackets, as well as some of Pavel's stuff, like some of the printers, or like electronics or barbecue grills, or whatever kind of random thing that it happens to be. If the line is not set up for whatever package this guy has, then he sorts it, and we might have like 3 like pallets, boxes, or racks over here, right? So like maybe this is like clothing, maybe this is electronics. Okay, maybe this is clothing, electronics. Let's see here. We'll just say big stuff, right? So that's kind of what's going on here, right? So, well, I don't need to draw it out. So what's going on is, whatever the line is set up to do. Like if these guys are set up to do clothing, great. We keep passing it down the line until we don't have any clothing left to do. If he comes across an item that's not clothing, he's going to put it, say, on electronics, because it's electronics. So then once they're done with clothing, he's going to pull electronics over here. They're going to switch the line over to do electronics, and they're going to blow through it. And we would call that a changeover. And I think the way that we handle this is that we would have, I don't know, let's just pretend these are rolling racks, right? So I'm just going to make a couple of these. All right, so we have rolling racks, And these rolling racks probably have different supplies of equipment on them. Okay, so let's just say, for example, that one rolling rack has packing supplies. Okay, another rolling rack has let's see, camera system or something like that, right? And then maybe one rolling rack has prep supplies, and that's going to be like maybe the bag sealer, some poly bags, and stuff like that. What we're able to do then is we can do a changeover where we pull these racks over to whichever guy needs them for whatever the current project on the line is, right? That's just a random example. And then when we change over to something different that doesn't need that, or it needs it at a different spot, we can just quickly roll them around or push them out of the way because we don't need them now. And if we do this, I think we could do all of our projects like this, at least the ones that continuously we get. Prep, forwarding. Forwarding probably doesn't need this because we don't do anything to the package usually, but this would be your prep, your inspections. It could even be some refurb like what we've done with the Wi-Fi extenders and the dog collars and things like that. And then I think this puts a lot more QC into all the processes because throughout this, each person doesn't need to really understand a full picture of what's going on. It's great if they do, but it's not required. So there's a lot more entry-level positions. We could have a lot more people who don't understand the full business model actually be work functional in a quicker period of time. And then there's always going to be somebody near them. Like, there's going to be somebody around that's going to be able to help with whatever issue is encountered. Like if they're doing large items, if you look at this, there's plenty of people here. So if you need a hand moving something, the guy that is right next to you. And also each guy is kind of able to check what the previous person did. So we should catch mistakes much sooner. Because like the problem we have right now is, you got, it's more like this. We've got four dudes who are like clear across the warehouse from each other. They're each doing kind of the same job, but they're doing this all themselves. So there's no QC about it, and it's like this guy would have no reason to know what this guy's doing or what that guy's doing. They can't really help each other. If they want to help each other, they have to walk clear across the building and find out, hey, can I help you or something? And like that's probably hurting us. And then the other situation we have is, there's a mistake, which happens, but we catch it, a few days later or something, and at that point, nobody really remembers what happened. They may not even remember who made the mistake or like why they did something a certain way. So sometimes that makes it a lot harder to like correct. Whereas if we're following a process like this, most mistakes would be caught within 5 minutes. It's really obvious who made the mistake, who it's past, and it can just be like pushed back to fix it. And it's kind of the same deal here, like if this sorting messed up, this guy's going to catch that because the barcode that he's scanning is going to tell him, hey, okay, is this clothing? Is this big stuff? Is this electronics? What is this? Is this even supposed to be over here? Like if he gets a package for prep, he can be like, well, this isn't an inspection. It needs to go back to the check-in sort. Which, at point, he would probably just come back here and put it on the damn conveyor. He doesn't have to even talk to anybody about it. Because, if they just keep chewing through packages, they're going to scan it. It's going to get a second chance to go the correct direction. So that way, we don't even have to stop and explain what happened. The guy just walks over and sets it on here, and then that's it. He's done. So I don't know for sure what this would do for efficiency because I'm not entirely sure that having 4 people on an inspection line will have a higher output than having 4 guys each doing inspection. I think it may though, because these guys are not doing any walking and they're not like setting as much things down or like looking for stuff. And then they're also continuously working. Like if one guy's slacking off or like has to take a break or something like that, the whole line has to shut down. But that could actually be a good thing. I think it could be a good thing. Um, and I also think that this is easier to adjust than this. Like, because right now, if we want to make a change about how any process is done, we've got to individually explain it to all three guys. In this situation or in this one, we really only have to explain it to like one like person who like leads the line, who would be this guy, and he can deal with explaining it to these three people because what he's going to explain to them is going to be much simpler. Like, we're not retraining this guy how to do inspection. All we're doing is retraining him about signing conditions or something like that. It's not as complicated. This guy, like, we're just telling him, hey, we're switched to what type of box we're using or something like that. We don't have to really, get into too much detail. So anyway, this is getting long, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this and just let me get know, guys. Let me know what you think.